From the shadowy depths of the city, where justice and mystery intertwine, emerges a broadcast as daring and vigilant as the masked Avenger himself. You are tuned in to the Green Hornet Case Files, unveiling the legacy and cultural significance of one of the greatest crime fighters of all time. Now, let the adventure begin. Here are your hosts, Kory and Greg.
Thank you, Miss Case.
Thank you very much. Episode, what is this?
14.
14. We had a little bit of a cluster.
14.5.
14 and a half. That's right. We apologize. I apologize. I'm one of those people. My wife always says, nobody's going to care if you're late. And I'm like, yeah, but I do.
Right.
I do.
It was eating at both of us.
Yeah, it really was. And we were in the process. We have been experimenting with this video.
Yeah.
And our buddy that's been doing all the tech end, it was working really, really hard and was having all sorts of problems. And
it was close to 3 hours of trying.
No, it's 3.5.
3.5.
3.5 is what I counted at least.
And then we got in. We actually got going, and we got less than 2 minutes of talking in, and it all fell apart.
And it just kind of went. But I am happy to say that we have our guest back with us. He didn't run screaming from, well, maybe he did run screaming from the building, but I wanted to bring in a new friend for Green Hornet Case Files. Actually, he's been a friend for a long time, but Ben Bentley is our guest, and Ben is the what are you? You're not the co-founder of the Batman 66 forum, but you're the co-administrator?
Hey guys. Yeah, I guess I'm the co-moderator at this point. I help my good friend Scott Sebring run that site. He didn't set it up. We actually both joined the same year, actually, 2004, which terrifyingly is 20 years ago. Oh God, when you say it like that. But no, honestly, Scott was handed the keys to it a couple of years after that, sort of round about the 2006 kind of mark, because the guy who did establish the site originally, a guy called David Sutton, he was pretty much already out of the picture, and the other chap who had been helping him run it since 97. I mean, if we really want to start throwing numbers around, 1997. Wow. They were both pretty much done with it. Like, real life was very much getting in the way, and at that point, the membership was comparatively sort of through the roof, and it really was a pretty big undertaking just as far as sort of administering a community of that kind of size. The keys were handed to Scott, and then a couple of years after that, once he and I sort of had become sort of friends in real life, as it were, outside of simply being, members of the same message board, he said, "Do you know what? I could probably do with another set of hands to throw a batarang around every now and again." And ever since 2009, so I guess 15 years now, I've been co-moderating the site with him, and at this point, it's more so like directing traffic. It really is a different animal these days. Since the advent of the social stuff. But honestly, I mean, the site, the numbers are there, like the traffic is still very much a thing, but people are definitely maybe a little bit more passive now than they used to be. But I mean, most people, you could get a pretty interesting raise of an eyebrow of them if you told them that in 2024, you still run a internet message board, right?
A message board, yeah. And I often question that myself, but, I'm that kind of a guy anyway. In addition, Ben is a heck of a photographer. If you go to his website and check out his photography, he does an awful lot of that kind of thing. And just a couple of weeks ago, you entered, I don't know if this is new for you, but...
It was new to us.
It was new to us.
We were introduced to Ben Went West.
Yes. Yeah. My other alter ego. Yeah. Thank you guys. Yeah. It's funny really, the music stuff, and getting to finally release a record of my own is something that's been kind of a long time coming, really. Funnily enough, it was actually music that got me more serious about photography, sort of 15, 16 years ago.
Oh, wow.
But no, to come full circle and to actually finally be back in a position where I'm writing music and getting to put out an EP is it's really really exciting. It's funny really because the streams of pretty much everything I'm interested in totally cross over. It's amazing how many of my my Batman and Green Hornet friends are also either very serious sort of hobbyist musicians, or some of them are even working musicians at this point. It seems to be the other de facto requisite for a lot of people who are who are in these fandoms. It's or at least those people definitely seem to sort of gravitate towards each other. But no, like you said, the Ben Went West record came out September 13th, so I'm not totally sure when people are going to hear this, obviously, but that's probably still just going to be a couple of weeks ago. But no, super excited. The only reason I didn't put it under my actual name is just because, as Greg mentioned, I am Googleable for my day job, as it were. So I kind of wanted to keep those things separate, just so people weren't super confused why the guy they were hiring for an ad campaign was also going to serenade them during the photo shoot.
Well, for the record, Devil on Her Back is just a rockin' tune.
Thanks you, Kory. I appreciate that so much. That was actually a slightly older song. So I the kind of the cliff notes here, and I know we're really not sort of going to go too far down this rabbit hole per se, but like a lot of people during 2020, I found myself stuck in an apartment surrounded by guitars, and all of a sudden I didn't have to go to work anymore. And and I started writing again for the first time in quite a while, just more so out of having the time and the sort of the wherewithal to do it. But funnily enough, Devil on Her Back is actually one of the oldest songs of that batch of 5 that ended up on this record. So that one actually goes back to 2008. But no, I sort of finally finished it and actually sort of ended it. It didn't have a bridge originally. It desperately needed one. It had to go somewhere. But no, I'm really pleased with it. Like all 5 of those songs kind of have a personality of their own. I was quite eager to put out. I definitely didn't have the time or the energy for an album straight out of the gate. But I knew that I couldn't just do a single, because I was like, there isn't a single song which kind of gives you the overall kind of understanding of what I'm trying to do. It was that thing of like, okay, I need to at least give people a little bit of a selection here to kind of get a sense of where I'm coming from. But no, it's funny that you mentioned Devil on Her Back, though, because that kind of has become the de facto single, because that's the song that ended up getting picked up for some radio play, and I seem to have had a ton of feedback on that one specifically. I think just because my good friend Andy Gaines played that really great dobro on there, and that kind of just takes it into this other world. Like, that guitar sound is amazing. Like, that guitar he played on that track is, I think, older than he and I put together, plus some. I think it's literally from, I want to say it's like 1920 or 1921 or whatever. Like, it's an actual a real deal steel guitar.
Nice. Well, if fans are listening and they want information, we'll be happy to put links in the show notes.
Oh, that'd be great.
I
can totally give you that. Yeah, that sounds good.
Absolutely. And if they're asking the question of why are we talking to the Batman 66 forum admin on this, you probably haven't dug deep enough to find the Green Hornet sub forum that goes along with
this. There we
this.
go.
And if you look at it, you'll probably see the top 10 or 15, 20, I don't know, have them.
It's gonna say Greg Martin.
It's got my name all over this thing. I kind of feel bad about that.
No,
but,
I mean, you and I have had this conversation, and honestly, Greg, as I've said to you privately, I'll say it on the record. Like, honestly, we when I say we, Scott and I are both really, really big fans of what you guys are doing, and the fact that you're coming at it in such an honest and a sincere way. It's great. There is no such thing as overstepping or overburdening at this point. I wish for your sake and for our sake that there was potentially a little bit more traffic in that section these days. But again, when you see the amount of people who read the posts that you share, the audience is there. They're just a little bit more passive than we would like them to be. But the thing is, if people aren't sharing and they're not communicating their enthusiasm as sincerely as you do, it yeah, it gets it's the snake that keeps eating itself, right? So you've got to keep posting, because otherwise, yeah, it something has to be the instigator at that point. But
Sure,
we're very glad
sure.
to have you. You were an incredible addition to the fandom, and honestly, I think the quality of what you guys are doing is really, really special, because I think that was one of my first observations I made when I heard that first episode. I think I said two things to you. I said that overall I loved that it sounded as slick and as pro as it does, but I also loved the conversational nature, and that you weren't necessarily coming at it from an academic point of view, but you were coming at it from the fans' point of view, which is having that hunger and that desire to learn more, right? Like setting out the stall saying, look, this isn't the be-all, end-all Wikipedia ultimate entry for any of this stuff, right? This is an ongoing conversation, and it's fun to explore these topics and to learn a little bit more together. And I think, honestly, as a listener, that's exactly what I get each time. Like Greg and I sat down and had lunch a couple of months ago back in San Diego during Comic-Con, and I said to him, I was like, this is really odd that we're sitting down and doing this, because I feel like every 2 weeks I sit down with the two of you and have a conversation. That really is what it feels like. And honestly, I can't think of a much better compliment at that point, because that is what you want, right? You want that kind of familiarity.
That's exactly. Yeah, that is exactly what we're after, and
that you're not wrong. That is the greatest compliment. Is any time we're told that you feel like you're having a conversation with a couple of friends. That's what we're shooting for.
And we've made no bones about the fact that we are not experts about this, and we get corrected every once in a while about something, and there's a lot of times though that we'll get questions asked of us, almost asking, and the biggest question we get is, when are the DVDs?
It's great, because people used to ask us that question, and now they can ask you instead.
Yeah, well, and I can't give them any better answer, although I'm a little closer to the answer than maybe most people, with the people that we've wound up getting to know with this.
Insert evil cackle here.
Yes. There you
I'm
go.
I'm twirling my mustache for you, if that's any consolation. You can't see it, but I'm doing my villain routine at this point. Wouldn't you like to know?
That is one heck of a mustache. I gotta pass that on. So
well,
if you don't get a chance, check out Ben's picture if anything else. So.
One of the things, Ben, just to kind of jump into some of this too, is we always like to ask people is how they came to the Hornet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I came to it through Batman, honestly, through the TV show. So to the best of my knowledge, so I grew up in the UK in the 90s. I live out here in California now for those playing along at home. But no, I spent most of my life in the UK, and to the best of my knowledge, I don't think the Green Hornet was in reruns there the same way in which it had been semi-consistently over here in the US. But so my first encounter with that character was when I logged on to the 1966 Batman forum, and I scrolled down that very first time back in 2004, and I saw this other section called The Green Hornet, and I genuinely had that moment of like, oh, huh. So what is this exactly? And
really? Yeah.
And I kind of got to go down the rabbit hole at that point. I think I vaguely maybe had heard of the character in a really tangential kind of way, but I don't think I knew there was a TV series at that point, and I really don't think I initially knew the Bruce Lee connection. But what was kind of interesting for the European market, when I went down the rabbit hole trying to find anything and everything I could Green Hornet wise to kind of fill in my gaps in knowledge and whatnot, I discovered that the two theatrical kind of supercuts that they had made from the TV series to cash in on Bruce's fame and then subsequent passing, those had actually been released on DVD. I guess there was some slightly different distribution rights for the theatrical releases, to the point at which in some of the territories abroad they had been able to do these they were pretty bad as far as the transfers, but they were two DVD releases. One of them was called The Green Hornet, just simply, and it was made up of 3 episodes or 3.5 episodes, kind of very hackneyed into sort of a feature length 90-minute supposed movie, and then the second one was called The Fury of the Dragon, and again it was just chopped up for parts and made into this very, very thinly held together kind of storyline. But that was, for the longest time, that was my before I eventually got a set of bootlegs. That was that was my first impression of the show. So it was kind of bizarre because you didn't get the intro and you didn't get the Dozier narration and all of that. A lot of the caveats of the structure of those episodes were gone because they were sort of chopping scenes left and right, and they were even extending fight scenes from what I remember, where as I became familiar with the actual 26 episodes of the show, I was like, geez, they really are like they were not afraid to pilfer from wherever. It's kind of, you realize how similar so many of those interior sets looked, because unless you were really paying attention, like insert stuntman of the week over here, and you realize that Bruce Lee in the same fight has actually kicked 3 different guys' asses, while supposedly only fighting with the one dude. So it was it was kind of eye-opening in the most bizarre way, because like I said, when I eventually became familiar with the series, and I love the series, like I really do, like Van and Bruce are definitely my Green Hornet and Kato. I went on to then look at the serials because they were easier to find and whatnot, but I really did keep kind of just this magnetic attraction back to the TV show. And I think some of that is maybe because it felt like an extension of Batman. And at that point in time, especially with sort of an almost childlike mentality of, okay, I've seen all 120 episodes of Batman. The Green Hornet felt like somehow finding episodes of that show that I hadn't seen. Do you know what I mean? Because it was in that same world. It was filmed on the same backlot. It was, obviously they'd already done that crossover and whatnot. It really did feel like finding episodes 121 onwards somehow of Batman, right? It felt like this spin-off of sorts, and I think some of my initial attraction was that, but I really did come to appreciate that those characters, and really appreciate the Hornet for what it is, which is actually this super cool show, which was before its time in a lot of ways, and really didn't actually get a fair shake. For all of the good that its Batman lineage did it initially, as far as the eyes that it put on it, a lot of people watching that show in real time back then were looking for more of what they were used to. They weren't quite ready for this neo-noir kind of very serious kind of, very different kind of show. Yeah,
I think that's been an issue.
It's funny because I actually made that reference earlier. This weekend we were talking and we were walking by a monitor at a con I was at, and they were playing Back to the Future, and it was the guitars what he's doing, and all I could think of was William Dozier being like, "Your kids are gonna love it." Like, you may not be ready for it right now, but I'm telling you,
there will be a point. There will be a point. I was in Walla Walla, this would have been a weekend ago, and doing the Adam West Day event that was going on there. Always a very fun thing, and dressed up as usual as the Hornet. And somebody stopped me at one point, and it's like, "Oh, it's the Green Hornet. What do you have to do with Batman?" And it was like immediately,
wow.
Immediately somebody moved up right next to him and went, "Oh, you haven't seen the episode. The 2 episodes. It's Batman, and it's the Green Hornet, and it's Robin, and it's Kato, and Kato would have kicked his ass." It's just that whole thing. So
I'm glad it came with enthusiasm as opposed to somebody pushing glasses up their nose and being like, "Well, actually."
It did come
First
with a lot of enthusiasm.
Ever.
Yes. Let's dig into this, shall we, and find out.
It's when somebody takes that really sharp intake of breath, and you're like, "Oh man, they're about to let me have it. Let's do this."
I should have kept my mouth shut, shouldn't I?
I like the idea, Greg. Whilst you're telling this story, I like the idea of you just slowly backing away from this conversation that was happening between these two people.
Just Homer in the show.
Yeah, just Homer. We're doing a lot of Simpsons references, it seems, tonight, but just straight into the hedge and.
It would have been easy. Would have been easy with that one. But it's, and then the person was like, oh, okay, I get it.
But that's
now.
awesome, right? Because that person's going to go home, they're going to Google it, they're going to be annoyed it's not on a streaming service, and then they're going to watch it on YouTube. So
we hope so. We hope so. Yeah.
Absolutely. So that brings us, Ben, to the heavy floating question that every interview we got to bring up. What's your take on the Seth Rogen movie?
Which Seth Rogen movie is that?
There was a
Seth Rogen movie? Seth Rogen. The name rings a
we're
bell.
talking Pineapple Express. That's the one.
Oh, that guy. McLovin's mate. Yes, I know that guy. Yeah. No, it's funny, actually, because when I started listening to your show and you guys were sort of routinely talking about it, in a bout of COVID I was dealing with a couple of months ago, I actually, and I will blame the fever that I was trying to break, I actually ended up rewatching that moving picture for the first time since it had come out. And honestly, I think I felt pretty damn similar to when I watched it in the theater, which was that Jay Chow is interesting. The car looks great because it's basically Dean Jeffrey's design.
Yeah.
And then the rest of it is just like taking a bottle of NyQuil and walking out into traffic, basically. I'm not a fan, Kory. I think that's maybe the more that movie by design was never going to be the movie that I wanted it to be. Because Seth's direction and subsequently the studio's agreement to go down that road, like it was a done deal. Like it was. Like there was the fan service moments, and it's great to hear that score kind of kick in, and it's the pedigree of some of the people involved. Like you could be, I see why we all kind of went through the stages of grief of like, oh, this really could have Michel Gondry and whatnot. Mm-hmm. Like it could have been so many different things. But again, if we're all being kind of taking that half a step backwards and looking at it for what it is, it was always going to be exactly what it turned into. So as a result of that, like in the moment, I tried to embrace it because there was a moment at I was in this was before I was living over here, but I was visiting California for Comic-Con in 2011, and someone's going to correct me on the year now, but no, whichever year it was, they had a booth at Comic-Con, and they had a Chrysler Imperial there, and it was decked out with the machine guns and stuff, and that was the first Black Beauty I'd seen in person at that point. And I was blown away, and I was like, that's cool. This was like seeing the Batmobile for the first time. And again, it was just in that moment, I was like, okay, this has to be a good thing, right? This is brand awareness. This is people starting conversations about, do you remember that show with Bruce Lee? And, oh, do you remember those comics in the 90s? And I was like, surely this cannot be there's no such thing as bad publicity, right? Well, Seth Rogen is he broke that rule, I think, as far as the exception to that rule. Because
if you don't have something nice to say, Ben.
Well, this is it. I mean, honestly,
go ahead and say it anyway.
I imagine we're probably not a ton of degrees of Kevin Bacon away from each other in the grand scheme of things. But these are words I would say to the man's face if push came to shove. So I'll stand by my lowly opinion on that. But no, honestly, I mean, being deadly serious, like. I am confident that is why we are in this kind of desert that we're in right now, is because, we are living with the repercussions of that movie and the stink that it left both on the studio's bottom line and also in the mouths of the people who were willing to give it a try. At best, there are people who didn't know the character who watched it and were like, well, that was a goofy-ass kind of action comedy movie. It was a weird buddy cop situation. It was kind of 21 Jump Street, right? It was that oddball kind of with Seth and Jay and whatnot. But realistically, the people who supposedly should have been the baked in audience for it were the ones who were obviously the most disappointed. In reality, like I said, I really do believe that that's why we're still being punished overall for that, as far as a lack of sort of a lack of stuff on the small screen or the big screen using the character. But I'm hoping that we're not a million miles away from being able to press reset. I think if anything, like the culture in Hollywood that has only become more pervasive since the early 2010s of rebooting and remaking, and we're at a point now where it doesn't matter if it's a turd in the fishbowl as long as it is IP that people are familiar with. I mean, the fact you can remake Roadhouse, like all bets are off, right? Like you can do whatever you want at this point, apparently, as long as somebody vaguely thinks in the back of their mind that they've heard of that brand before.
Yeah.
Well, and you mentioned something too during that I had the opportunity of seeing firsthand, and that was being able to show that film to my grandson, who at the time was probably 14. I think he's 17. So it was probably 2, 3, 4 years ago that he wound up sitting down with me to see that, and. And I have to say that I think he likes the film. He liked the Seth Rogen approach to it, but he had no background with the character.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it did give, on a positive note, it did give a new generation a look at a character, albeit badly from our perspective.
Right,
but,
yeah.
He at least saw that this guy was, what he was, and became a crime
honestly,
fighter
more power to it. As much as I'm sat here being sassy and all the rest of it, like I'm a big believer in different strokes for different folks, right? But at the same time, I'm also a realist in the sense of, okay, we have to accept that although, yes, some people like this, there are repercussions in the broad sense, right? As far as what it did to the franchise and stuff. But to be honest, I mean, from what I can tell, it doesn't seem like a bunch of 14-year-olds at the time particularly took to it. The box office numbers certainly don't reflect that. So unless somebody can show me proof that one of the streamers is being kind of, I don't know if they're receiving a lot of requests or what the actual playback numbers on that look like because that's the thing, right? We would have otherwise judged it on sort of, okay, this was a sleeper hit because it did very well on home video or whatever, and nowadays, it's pretty hard to sort of get any real transparent kind of understanding of how well things... The streamers only want to tell you about the stuff that is doing very, very well, right? They'll tell you how many hours of The Office people are rewatching, or, okay, this project that was paid for by Netflix or whatever, but they're not particularly forthcoming when it comes to... do you remember that Seth Rogen Green Hornet movie? How did that do last month?
It's actually kind of funny you bring that up. Is when I see it crop up, like recently was on, I believe it was on Hulu for a few months.
Right, I think that's where I rewatched it. I think honestly, when I was in my COVID haze and I didn't want to change streamers at that point, it literally came up as a suggested option, and I just went for it and kind of bit my lip.
So to get those streaming numbers, I'll turn it on when I leave. Just
that's maybe a great
plays.
way to enjoy it. Actually, that's maybe the ideal way. You go out and have a nice meal and
it's feeding back to people that maybe there is demand for more.
A little bit more of this. And I think you and I, Ben, had the conversation over lunch about, and you mentioned, movies being turds, and that, a lot of people will stay away from that turd for a certain amount of time until the stench kind of backs away from it. And I think that's where you were going with part of the comment was, I think we're getting close to that point with Amazia Entertainment and Universal working together. I haven't heard the latest. I did actually reach out to them over the weekend, sent an email, and have not heard. I'm kind of doubting that I will, but at least I'm going to keep punching that, once every couple of weeks.
No, honestly,
just to say, hey.
I think that's a great idea. I'm gonna be careful not to step on anything that I am or aren't allowed to say at this point. But I was just over a year ago. I was working on a project in my day job in my photography world. Whereby which Amazia were a partner and stuff. And I was having a conversation with one of the execs. Just generally about the show, and I knew that they had the rights. And I wasn't trying to feel her out necessarily, because I knew full well that she wasn't going to tell me anything she couldn't say out loud or whatever. But I wanted her to know that somebody. I mean, I'm in my mid-30s, right? So I wanted her to know that somebody under the age of 55, A, knows about this property and doesn't just associate it with Seth Rogen, and B, actually kind of has a vested interest in it. Sort of, I was acting as if this lunch break we were taking was like a one-man market research kind of experiment that they didn't ask for. But no, the thing that did give me confidence was that sort of the exec I was dealing with, and the immediate sort of team who at that point, and like I said, this is a year ago, were sort of working on that project. Everybody really did come at it from a point of view of, okay, how do we reset this from what we've dealt with more recently? How do we go back to the good grace that sort of that Bruce Lee's legacy has given that series, right? Like as far as that goes. So yeah, I don't know. I haven't like you, Greg. I haven't seen anything concrete in recent months, but that doesn't mean that things aren't happening. So I'll be as excited as the next person to hear whatever the next update is, even if it's just a tidbit. I must admit, I lost track of this project, but do we know if is Kevin Smith still going to do an animated series, or did that go by the wayside in the end?
The last I heard was a couple of years ago that there was a mention of it, and have not had anything since that particular time. We probably should have asked Phil Hester.
Right.
What he knows about that. But,
I would have been really interested to have seen where that went, because I enjoyed Kevin's work on the series and of comics that he did, and I think that sort of his passion for that character, albeit yes, Kevin is somebody who's also known for his brand of comedy. He is somebody who that does not present itself the same way in which Seth's brand of humor translates into everything that he does. Yeah. So yeah, I would have been really interested to see that, because I going back to I think Kory, you said this a few episodes ago. The idea of like a neo-noir kind of Bruce Timm looking Batman the Animated Series approach to the Green Hornet, that to me that's the obvious choice at this point. As much as I would love to see a really solid live action TV show or a movie at this point, I really do think like an animated option where you can super stylize this, and you can set it in that very odd kind of timeless atomic age kind of whichever period you want to choose between Art Deco and then the atomic kind of age stuff. Like I think that's the perfect spot for a story like this to unfold in animation, at least. Yeah,
it's 100%. Like I especially with the resurgence with Bruce Timm putting out the Amazon show, the Cape Crusader.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's it. Like I've got to admit, I was sat there watching that show, and I super enjoyed it. But every time I was like, okay, yeah, this would be a great moment now for Britt Reed to step into Bruce's office, and yeah, it really felt like it was. Yeah, it just felt like such a natural fit, and it's. Surely we, the three of us, can't be the only people sat here sort of thinking that, right? Right?
I don't think so. One of the things that we explored a little bit with the French film episode is that there are filmmakers out there, and have been filmmakers out there, that have explored in short form their dreams, their visions for what the Green Hornet, might be. I'm actually working on a possible, well, it's not possible, it will happen, short film right now that we're in pre-production on.
That's great news.
And you just came out with, you're just looking at something here, Kory, on your phone. What's this?
So this is actually something I stumbled across earlier today, and instead of sending it to you, I wanted to bring it up. If anybody is associated with or on the Green Hornet Sting page on Facebook, there was a photo posted about 18 hours ago of two guys. You get your Britt and Kato, and it's a phenomenal picture. But in the comments, there's nothing about where it's from or what it is. So if anybody's seen it, it was posted 18 hours ago today, which is the 30th when we're recording of September. Go back and look at that page, and if anybody knows what that is, Green Hornet 66 or podcast at greenhornet66.com. Let us know, because I want to know what this is from, because even if it's just a fan photo, it's phenomenal.
Right.
And if you haven't seen it, it's great.
I haven't. I must admit, I'm not a Facebook person these days, and haven't been for quite a while. But there are occasionally moments like this where somebody will mention something or send me something, and I'm like, damn it! The one time I need to be able to click on a Facebook link. So I'll have to maybe, I'll maybe have to get you to send me that so I can take a little look.
Yeah, we definitely will. There is one bit of news that we will pass along from the French film guys.
Oh,
and Kory, I think, was it just yesterday morning?
You sent me very exciting news.
The director of the film, Aurélien Poitremont. I sure hope I'm getting really difficult to say those French words sometimes.
You said it with a level of confidence this time that I almost believed you that might be.
Thank you. I've been practicing.
You took a good run up at that one.
I received an email a couple of days ago, and just basically says, "Hello, guys. Here is the remastered version of the French film, The Green Hornet."
Well, I think I had told you, Greg, that when you guys had done the episode and you were talking about it, I instinctively went back to some hard drives from around the time that film came out, and I was like, okay, what does the copy look like that I have? And sure enough, nowadays on a modern 4K screen, it's like looking at a postage stamp. And then you make it any bigger, and of course it's So I would be really, really excited to see that, because honestly, I remember when we all saw that when it first kind of showed up, like that really felt like the beginning of something. And then we were so excited when we heard it had a feature film that was coming up, and then all of a sudden, Seth's name was attached to it, and people kind of maybe started to temper their enthusiasm a little bit, because
just a little bit.
That movie was great. Those guys did such a great job.
They really did,
to a level that was unprecedented online at that point. There was kind of a sweet spot in the fan film kind of genre at that point. Sandy Cholera had just done his really great Batman Dead End movie. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with that fan film or not, but I
haven't seen
that's
that.
Batman versus Predator. It's a 10-minute Alex Ross looking short. And it's phenomenal. You've seen that, Kory, right? Like it's great. Like, and it's and the Green Hornet one kind of followed that pretty quickly, and we were like, oh wait, hang on a minute. If this is possible, and people at home are making this stuff out of nothing but love for these characters, then surely with the budget of a major motion picture studio, surely they can't screw this up, right? And ...
Yeah, I don't know where this is going to go. I've asked Aurélien what he's planning on doing with it, if he's going to re-release it on YouTube, if we can release it ourselves, via the podcast through our Facebook page. We'll find out, and
I'm hoping to get it out to more people.
Yeah,
it needs to be seen.
Just want it to get out to a lot more people.
No, honestly.
I have one more question before we wrap things up here. I just glanced at my time here, and all of a sudden it's like, oh gosh, we've been really rolling on this sucker here. And it does. The question I do want to ask, and it doesn't need a long answer from you, but what do you see is wrong with the Green Hornet? And I don't necessarily mean the characters per se, but more the franchise. What's holding the Green Hornet back right now, besides a movie, to put it out there to the rest of the world?
The short answer, and again, this is sort of me in my professional kind of sense coming at this, it's the marketing job, honestly. Because the meat and the potatoes are there, right? The product is good, the character is timeless, the story still applies this day and age, right? Like there's more corruption than ever, right? So the idea of somebody as a private citizen taking it upon themselves to sort of to really kind of that cross between Robin Hood and and Batman kind of whatever mentality, that story is begging to be told again. So honestly, it's a brand awareness exercise. It really is, because we are at a point where the milestones and the reference points, as much as I can sit here and joke about Seth's movie, those are the cultural touchstones for a large part of the demographic at this point, right? Like your grandson and his generation, definitely, that is their only field of reference in their living memory. And the problem is, sadly, and I certainly don't mean to be morbid about this, but generationally speaking, the generation who grew up with the radio serials, the movie serials, and then eventually the TV show, that window for that audience to be to really show up for a new incarnation of this character, that window is closing. And there needs to be some groundwork to ensure that there are new people being introduced to this character, and I'm not being ageist or whatever within that, because I would like to think that part of that new audience could be across the age range, right? But if we're talking about the people who do know of the Green Hornet and Kato and the basic lore, the average age probably skews into a bracket that has a finite lifespan at this point. If we're no, I mean, honestly, like I said, I'm really not trying to sound any kind of way about that, but like I said, from a marketing point of view, if your audience is shrinking and you are not actively investing in fixing that, then you end up with a dormant franchise like we have at this moment. Because it's great that the comic stuff is kicking, and that's where this character is sort of is having little shots of adrenaline injected into it sort of every couple of years, but that market itself is also dwindling. Like, whether we want to admit it or not, within the comic book and pop culture world, you need live action, or at least animation on the small screen to support your IP and to keep it active across multiple genres, not just multiple platforms, but multiple genres, right? These characters, whether it's Batman, whether it's Superman, whether it's on the Marvel side of things, these characters exist in video games, they exist on television to some degree, they exist in the movie theaters. Do you know what I mean? Like, there has to be this cross-platform, cross-medium attempt at keeping these characters in people's minds and hearts and all the rest of it. And that's the bizarre thing, is people are still investing every few years into the rights for the merchandise, right? Like, Diamond Select just last year obviously paid their dues and whatever, and started releasing a bunch of Kato-oriented stuff.
Right.
But essentially, it seemed like this kind of backdoor way of them getting to do some Bruce Lee merch, because within the action figures, within the statues, within the stuff they were putting out, at no point was there ever a Green Hornet to go with the Kato.
No.
And that is
was.
just such a colossal indictment of where this character is at to me, right? Like, I'm sat there as a fan being like, man, I really want a 7-inch Van Williams Green Hornet to go with this Bruce Lee Kato figure that I just bought. The packaging looks great, the likenesses were great, but hang on a minute, the guy whose name is on the door isn't being featured in this line of products. Like, that's a huge issue.
Exactly.
That is a huge problem.
That's exactly right.
So we've got to figure out between us, both as a fandom and then obviously, as an industry at large, okay, like, how does that change? What is the missing ingredient here? Because from what I can tell, all the parts are sat there, right? Somebody just has to do something with it, and it's having that confidence to spend that money and to reinvest in this character, which has a proven track record before you get to 2010, 2011 or whatever with the Rogan films. We need the gadget from Men in Black, right, where they use the pen flashlight thing and people just forget the previous conversation or whatever. But no, I'm not laying this entirely at Seth's feet, because a lot of people in a boardroom somewhere said, yes, this seems like a great idea, and obviously it was not the kind of idea they thought it was, right? It was the horse they backed was not the winner of that race. And I think time has put that into perspective. It wasn't just that it made a stink at the box office. It's that, it was an experiment. It didn't entirely work. But yeah, I think, the succinct answer, Greg, is that, it's the marketing job. The character is there. The idea is there. It's tried and tested. We just need a vehicle for it. And we need a vehicle that is going to serve it beyond a movie or an initial series of a show, right? We need something that is going to find its feet and is going to become franchise material like we have seen for pretty much every other sort of superhero character.
Yeah, there we go. If you're not familiar with it, you haven't been there, be sure and go to 66batman.com. Be sure and sign up for the message board.
Yeah, we'd love to have you.
Yep, go find the Green Hornet sub of that, and be sure and check out all the posts on there and jump in and respond if you would, please. I'd appreciate that very much because I'm always on the thing talking about whatever it happens to be.
And let's give Ben work to do.
Right,
Seriously.
Keep me busy. Come on. Yeah, cause a little bit of trouble. Make me use my very serious British accent, which is very very condescending when it needs to be.
It can be, yes.
Perfect.
And if you haven't had the opportunity, by all means, go check out Ben Went West on Apple Music and
Spotify.
other places.
It's streaming everywhere you listen to music. It's on YouTube. It's you name it. There's even some streamers out there that I didn't know existed until I saw the digital distribution come through, and I was like, well, that's great that somebody listened to it on Deezer, whatever the hell that is.
Whatever that happened to be, right? Yeah. Ben Bentley, thank you for your time, my friend. And
thank you, guys. This was a blast.
We're going to have to do it again soon.
Yeah,
I
would love
there's
to.
There's a lot more conversation to be had.
Indeed. A lot more conversation.
Indeed.
Yeah, there definitely is.
Keep up the great work, guys. I really appreciate what you're doing, and you're definitely flying a flag for a fairly silent fan base, but a fan base nevertheless who are out there. And I guess I want to maybe speak for a bunch of people at this point by saying thank you for doing it in the spirit that you're doing it in, and for persevering. Because honestly, getting past 10 episodes of anything is a huge feat, right? Like, there's a statistic that most podcasts don't make it past episode 3 or whatever, and to say that you're on what was this, number 14 now? I'm thrilled to I'm thrilled to join you for this, and like you said, let's do it again sometime.
All right.
We need flags. He said it. Now I just want a flag.
Actual flag.
Just a big Green Hornet flag.
Yeah.
Well, we'll get you one, okay? You asked for it.
I will actively wave that flag. Not like off the back of a truck or anything, but just...
If you have any comments, questions about anything that you've heard today or just anything in general, be sure and email us, podcast at greenhornet66.com. Is that right?
I believe.
Green Hornet 60. I can't remember my own.
It's because we missed, we were late. It's our entire circadian rhythms.
Everything is kind of
doing the episode
foobar at this point, but that's just kind of the way we roll.
It wasn't for a lack
this.
of trying. I know you mentioned it briefly at the beginning, but honestly, yeah, these guys worked for about 3 hours or so to try and get this together the other night, and I felt terrible for you that after all that we had to throw in the towel, because I get the feeling that's not in anyone's nature here. So
people couldn't see the bodacious mustache, the magnificent stash, and one of these days.
The mustache that leads Ben West.
That's right. That's right. Hey, and with that, guys, I appreciate the time that you've spent with us. We're going to wrap things up. Are we ready to roll?
We're going to have to get out of here. I mean, a little teaser. I have some questions for the audience that's probably going to rankle some feathers, and I'm very excited to ask those questions next week.
Let's rankle, shall we?
All right.
All right, let's roll, Cato.
As the night envelops the city once more, our journey through the hidden alleys of history and valor comes to a close. You've been riding shotgun with the Green Hornet Case Files, where the echoes of the past meet the voices of the present. Tune in again for the next thrilling adventure, where shadows speak, secrets unfold, and the legacy of the Green Hornet continues to inspire. The Green Hornet Case Files is a Grail Productions podcast. The Green Hornet is owned exclusively by Green Hornet, Inc. Until next time, vigilant listeners, keep your wits sharp and your spirit unbreakable.